To close out this great season, I'm excited to be with this band. Ohio's own 90s kids are self-described as pop music for people who don't like pop music. Their diverse sound and consistent jams deem them as a band to watch. With their most recent single, as recording this, Growing Up, and Mandy Moore featuring Fangs, they encapsulate everything that is being a 90s kid at this moment. Big shout out to my personal quarter-life crisis. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, Allie, thank you for having us.
If you guys just want to introduce yourselves and what you guys do in the band.
Yeah, I'm Corey. I sing and I play guitar and I do a lot of the songwriting.
I'm Matt. I play the keys and I do some production.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you guys. To get things kicked off, what was the first thing you guys listened to this morning?
Olivia Rodrigo, Trader. Pulled it up on my way to my workout and it was just, it was the right vibe.
Yeah. That's, you know.
I say that as a 25-year-old man jamming songs about 17-year-old boys and girls, and, you know, it's great. But
listen, that was, when I listened to the album, I'm a big fan of listening to things in order, so that I think it's like the second track. I immediately started crying when I heard it, and I was like, I haven't been heartbroken in like 2 years, like I'm unwell, and it's just still relevant, and that's
it puts you in that place in such a weird way. Like I'm so far removed from middle school, but I felt like I was in middle school again when I listened to that.
And I think that's the beauty of that entire record.
Oh yeah, exactly.
What about you, Matt?
Yeah, my I was saying it was pretty obscure and random today, but it's a song called Shades of Grey by Oliver Heldens, who's like a electronic music like DJ, but it was the Nora and Pure remix of it, which is really good.
Interesting. So, okay, I'll have to check it out.
It's
I have been on Lord's new song Solar Power since the second I found out it dropped, and it's been a problem because I can't stop listening to it.
I like it.
It's good. I exactly. And I was talking to actually my brother's girlfriend, and I was, because she's a big Lord fan, and we both were like, it's not what we expected for that first one out, but I will take it. Also, anything that Jack Antonoff works on, I will take and be very excited about no matter what.
Everything that guy touches turns to gold. It's ridiculous. I mean, he just pumps out hits and hits and hits, and he's been doing it for like, I love that, like, he's becoming like a mainstream name, and people are appreciating him as a writer just as much as that, like, he's not just that guy from Bleachers. Like, he is also like the writer now, which I think is really important for the industry to like start kind of lifting up the people behind the scenes that make things happen. I don't know. I think it's great, like, that it's not just about the superstar who sang it, but it's about, you know, and Jack Antonoff is a superstar, but it's like, I think it might be fostering a little bit more of a good thing, like in the age of how songs are written these days.
Absolutely. And my friend and I, Sydney, we have the very, very similar music taste. Anything she sends me, I send her, you know, it's always the same. And a few years ago, we went back and we looked through all of our favorite producers once we realized like everything that Jack Antonoff has touched, and then realizing how many of the same producers we listen to, because so many, you know, everyone has hands in different pots. So it was a really great like self-discovery thing of like, oh, like this producer has done all of the pop punk stuff I listen to, and then this one has done all of the same pop stuff. So that whole like intermingled world of producing and then also mixing is like, I love paying attention to it, because I think it's just so fascinating, and you know how many people have worked with each other, and I think he's the perfect example of like how we should do that.
Right. And like from our perspective too, like I think one of the first things I do when like a new song comes out from an artist that like we look up to is like, you look at the song credits in Spotify, because not only will you kind of see those people working together where you're like, oh my God, so-and-so wrote on this track by like the band Camino or something like that.
Yeah.
But you also can find new people, you know, new writers, new producers that you didn't know about before. And I think that we've been able to like link up with certain people just by seeing them in the credits and looking them up on Instagram and like shooting a DM and saying like, hey, want to work together sometime? Like, it's so cool that Spotify has that feature. And I know now they're doing like the writer playlists and things like that. So hopefully that continues to expand. And I think it's definitely like promoting a lot of that collaboration.
Yeah, and it's funny because the folks in Valley have touched like almost every artist I've interviewed so far. And not even like with me knowing it. It was more so of like either it's something that's upcoming or just like in, oh, like a few months ago we like toured together and then we wrote this track. And I'm like in this like realm of like alt pop like stuff right now, they've like every band I swear to God has like worked with them at so in some capacity, whether it was play a show with them, write on something, produce. It's crazy, and yeah.
Yeah, we did just write a song with them like 2 months ago. So
All right. Well, I was gonna say as I say that, you guys are gonna tell me that you didn't, and then it's gonna be a really awkward moment. So here we are.
what's that game? Have you ever heard of the game 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon?
Yes.
Where you can get Kevin Bacon through six steps of like the actors that he's. I think that it's going to become like 6 Degrees of Valley in the next like couple years.
I think we're probably already there.
Let's make that happen. Let's make that a thing.
Exactly.
No, they're great. They're awesome. They're like our favorite up and coming band right now. I mean, everything they put out is like. It just, they keep elevating, raising the bar, and it's like it's the soundtrack to your 20s, and like it's like things that you don't say, but you think about on a daily basis, and it's like, wow, I didn't know how to put that into words. So they're so great about that, and really fun to work with them, and we're excited for the world to hear that when it's ready.
I'm so excited now that I know that. So to kind of continue this conversation, I guess we'll just hop right into the music part. I have some fun questions alongside, but we've kind of already just like delved deep into it. So the first song I heard from you guys was Adeline, and it came on my Discover Weekly. So naturally I go listen to the whole discography because that's just something I do in discovering music, because if there's one song I like, there's bound to be others. And I was so impressed because I think that your guys' sound is just so unique, and the fact that it's current, but also there's so many other influences, when you listen to any of the songs. So before we get into most recently releases, do you want to talk about how your kind of climb began? Because from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, 2018 was about the time you guys landed in the scene-ish. And already you guys have over 100,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, which is incredible. Congratulations with that alone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Well, yeah, it all started in like a college bedroom in Athens, Ohio, at Ohio University. Matt and I were juniors, and we met through a friend of a friend, and we kind of worked together a little bit off and on, and then finally, like, I had this idea for a project. I think I had to sell a video game system to go record the song, and I did, and I like brought it to him, and he was like, okay. I want to be involved with this. And then he was like, I'll produce you. And I was like, no, you're going to be in the band with me. And he was like, oh, I don't want to be in a band. And then I was like, sorry, you're going to be in the band. And so we wrote a few of those songs, including Adeline, at OU in that little bedroom, like fishing an aux cord across the room to like record audio. And like, it was just the jankiest setup. And you wouldn't believe like how those songs were formulated. But that was kind of how it started, and we pulled in Robbie, our guitar player, who was my roommate at the time, and then Jordan kind of came along, I think in 2019, to kind of round out the lineup. And we started a lot on that vibe of like, you know, the 1975, like everybody wants to sound like the 1975, and we enjoyed like kind of building off of that influence, and like Laney, Walk the Moon, kind of like mashup of all that stuff. And I think as of late, maybe the last like year and a half, 2 years, we've really discovered who we are, and that's you know, keeping some of those influences at play, but you know, we've started to write music that makes us feel like we're kids again, like the music that we loved growing up. Like, why did we love that music, right? And I think that's why we'll always have this nostalgic air to our band, regardless of what sort of era our songs sound like they're from, or what influences we're pursuing. It's because the mindset is always, what feelings or memories does this invoke? And that's always where it starts. Like, does it feel genuine from that perspective first? And so, yeah, I think it's been really fun, like, since that time of, like, being in that crappy little bedroom together to now, and, like, amassing a little bit of a following and going on tour and stuff, and, like, really finding who we are and what makes us love music. And that's kind of how we've shifted and become a little bit more confident in our sound.
Absolutely. And so you guys all met in college. How relevant are your college degrees to what you guys are doing now, if I can ask that?
Mine's not really super relevant.
I think it is.
I mean, it kind of
More
is.
relevant.
Like I ended up with a communications degree. I was like
Okay.
studying like music production and music business, but the way it was structured is like that was like a small part of like my whole curriculum. So I ended up with a comms degree, and so so we all have like full-time jobs still. So I do like lead gen and like Salesforce admin, like CRM kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So the thing is like that, I still don't think that degree is that like relevant to what I'm doing, but the music stuff helped for music for sure.
I'm like super far off. I majored in like essentially like data and analytics and stuff, and I do consulting work like 9 to 5, and I mean, so definitely not relevant to this, but I think what's so great about that, like throughout college and even now, like having like full-time gigs that pay the bills, is that we don't look at this as something that we have to do. We look at this as something that we get to do. And I think that a lot of artists, unfortunately, because of the way the industry kind of tugs you down, a lot of artists, get kind of downtrodden with like, oh my God, I got to pump out another song, or I got to play another show, or I got to schedule another tour. And it's like, we look at that as stuff that we get to do, because it's not the thing that, puts food on the table, but we want it to be. And we've made, I think, great strides throughout our career. So we're kind of in that interesting spot where I don't know if like a lot of people know that about us. Like a lot of our fans know that about us, that we're kind of on the grind, like full time, as well as like we basically have 2 full-time jobs, but we look at it as it's like a privilege, right? So we're gonna do the damn thing until we can't anymore,
Yeah, and I think that is even more impressive because, not that doing one or the other is less impressive, but the fact that you guys have handled that so well, and I think it's incredible. And also how I barely handle my full-time job and then also do this podcast, and all I do is sit and talk to a computer for about a couple hours, but I was like thinking about college, and I know there's like a huge like TikTok trend where it's like, what's your degree and then what are you doing now, and some of them are just like completely irrelevant, and I like, even that's just random people who just ended up as an art teacher and they have an engineering degree, so I think that's awesome. And looking back, was there a music scene at your college, or was that just something you guys happened to stumble upon? I went to a very large university, and maybe there was a music scene that I just didn't know about, that I just was too busy in the AV club. But what did that look like for you guys?
It was very like, it's different there, but what was interesting is I think we fell at a time where 2 like rising pop bands right now like ended up at the same school together, and like OU's very much like the school, like the bands that pop up there are like kind of like more in the, I would say, like blues, jazz, kind of like folk stuff, like maybe psychedelic. And then we landed at a time when another band called Clubhouse, who are like dear friends of ours, we were both in school at the same time. We met each other, and we put on a couple like pop shows there at venues that just didn't do pop shows ever. It ended up being really cool, like having that like college campus vibe with like kids that weren't typically going to concerts at that school, like showing up and selling out these rooms. So that was awesome. it's just, there's definitely a music scene there, definitely an art scene there, and it's really rich and really cool. I think we just fell at a time where it was like, let's do something different for a couple of years, and then I got out of there, and we're still doing the thing. But yeah, it's a really unique spot, and I think that it varies obviously college to college. Where did you go to school?
I went to University of Tampa and then I transferred to University of Central Florida. So I went from like 6,000 to 60,000. So it was a big jump, and the first school, Tampa doesn't really have, they have an alt pop scene, but not so much like in where I was. And then Orlando more so is, I want to say, like punk. So I kind of got in this like awkward, like I was in the scene but I wasn't in the scene, and then like I graduated, and now I live outside of DC. So and then COVID hit, so like still don't know what the scene is here. I'm kind of still figuring it out. I've talked to a couple bands here that are alt pop, but very much not normal for this area. Which is interesting. Are you guys local to Ohio, or did you kind of just end up there?
Local to Ohio. We're kind of scattered across. So I'm from Cincinnati. Robbie is from Cleveland, and then he and Jordan are from here in Columbus, and we all kind of coalesced into Columbus now, and we all live in the same house together, and yeah, it's great. Ohio's not so bad.
I was gonna say, so I think when I think of Ohio, I think of 21 Pilots naturally. Do you guys remember when that kind of scene kind of happened, like the turn of the scene almost, when they kind of popped off in the best way? Was that kind of a defining moment for the scene in Columbus?
I think it was. And I'll let you speak to it because you were more in Columbus, but I think that nobody had really done like the I'm going to be a pop superstar thing, but they did it in such a different way that no matter what kind of music you liked, you couldn't really look away, which I think was so cool. And I don't really know how that reflected on the city itself, so maybe you can talk about that. But
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't really remember it too much because I wasn't super involved in the music scene because it was kind of towards the end of high school. And I really didn't get really back involved with music until college again. But I do remember like my senior year of high school, there was just like so much talk about like this band, 21 Pilots, and they're like selling out the Newport and stuff and like blowing up. And like everyone was talking about 21 Pilots and like going to their shows. So, but I think like they've had a massive impact just on like the Columbus scene like today. And like, those venues they played, even the small ones, are like people like come here and they play those and it's like iconic to them because like, wow, like 21 Pilots played this 200 cap venue and stuff. So I definitely think they've influenced so many artists here and like music people in the scene. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was in high school when I saw them at 930 Club here in DC, and that was it's like a larger venue here, but it is pretty iconic. From what I understand, I don't know, people are always like, oh, 930 Club. But even seeing them there was like nuts. And then now, they play huge arena shows. But I just was curious about that since you guys are local and kind of grew up in that area. So your songs are like I kind of said, they have that nostalgic feel, and I think every single song that I have heard has hooked me from the first couple chords. I think Adeline is a perfect example of that, and then also Freak Me Out is simply incredible. And I'm just kind of curious of how you guys kind of, was there ever a point of I don't want, like somebody in the band didn't want to do that type of music, or there was like kind of an alternate option into a different genre?
yeah, I mean, so what's been so interesting, I think, is our sound was really consistent to start because it was kind of going after our influences, and then in the middle, a few singles kind of we jumped around a little bit, got really experimental, even as recently as the last EP. But I think there was a time, maybe early 2019, we were about to release or we had just released High School, which is a song that we all love, and we all love that. And there was kind of this inflection point where I think we started to try to be something that we weren't, and we were really going towards this vibe of like, I felt like as one of the primary writers, like that I was pushing to sound like radio pop, like minimalistic kind of like singery, songwritery kind of stuff, like music that we love, like
Yeah.
the Lauves of the world, like sounding like that, and we kind of had like I don't know 4 or 5 demos, and just kind of like stepped back and we're like, okay, like these are solid, and then out of honestly just pure like frustration, like it felt like something was wrong, like it just didn't feel like they were clicking on an emotional level. And then I just remember like I was like, how long has it been since I like got a dirty guitar tone and just started wailing on it? And out of like frustration, that is how Freak Me Out started. Was just like
Interesting.
it doesn't feel like what we're doing is even connecting with us at this point. And so sitting down and starting Freak Me Out, just like, let's just rock out on a track, but have it have those intricate production kind of things that make us what we are. And that song, I feel like if anybody were to get one song to be like, what is 90s kids? Like we would all say, listen to Freak Me Out. Because that's everything that we have done and everything like that we are going towards, like all kind of jumbled into one. And so, yeah, like it's a great question because I think every artist has that point where you're like, who are we? Like, what do we want to be? And so we certainly had that. And I think we made the right choice for us because what we're writing and putting out now is making us happy. And if it makes us happy, hopefully it's going to make somebody else happy.
If it's not making you guys happy, why would anybody else want to listen to it? Like as a fan, like if I'm listening to an artist that doesn't like what they're doing, then why
Right.
even, maybe good, but
And I feel like you can tell when something's
yeah,
not genuine. And so that's why it's so important, and that's why every artist has songs. Every artist has like a whole hard drive full of songs that they're not going to release. Because I think the artists that realize that I guess genuineness is the most important thing. Those are the artists that I think succeed both personally and outwardly to their fans.
absolutely. And your last EP, Doing Love Wrong, was released at the end of 2020. How was the recording process for that? Was that done through COVID? I mean, well, guys mentioned you all live in the same house, so I'm sure it was a little easier time than most people had. But if you want to touch on that process, that'd be great.
Yeah, like it was easier in some ways, but more difficult in other ways because we had always had the ability to run down to Nashville and record with friends or produce down there or write with people. And this was the one where it was like, okay, we're gonna take all those skills that we've learned and put it to the test and like fully self-produce this thing. And really only one of the songs was co-written or anything, and like we did it, but there were definitely like growing pains with it, which I think we learned a lot from it, and I think we're so proud of how it came out. But it's just a challenge. Like COVID is a challenge, like even in ways that you wouldn't think it would be. Like, oh, we all live together, and we can record this stuff, but it's like, oh, we don't really have the best equipment in the world, and we don't have like sound treated rooms and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
it's harder to, I guess, capture that sound on our own. So we really had to rely on like our mixing engineers and like mastering engineers to like pull these songs together and like make them sound crisp and polished. And we're glad that we have the team that we do and that we can just kind of like send stuff through the internet to our collaborators. But I think it was a really good like learning experience, and this guy like absolutely crushed the production on it. I mean, like I definitely think all of us made really big strides on it.
Matt, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think he covered it pretty good. I think the only two songs that started before COVID were "Freak Me Out" and "Love Like That," and the rest were all written in COVID. And I think it just it had such like a big impact on us as like writers and producers because we were just like not going out. We're just like stuck here on the weekends, and like we would just go have a few beers or a few White Claws, go up to the studio and just like work on music like every night. And we really didn't have that opportunity before because there was always just like these one-off shows that would pop up that we were like, oh, we got to practice for this, and they're just like interfering with like writing so much. So I honestly think the pandemic like really had a positive effect on us in terms of our growth as like writers and producers, which definitely thankful for.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's really interesting to look at how so many different bands kind of attacked how they were going to handle COVID and lack of shows, and a lot of shows, propel momentum. And I think you guys have done a beautiful job with that and being able to put out that record. And now looking at the future, I don't know exactly what we're getting. At least a couple singles, an album, maybe, and I think that's great, and I loved it. And I also love Growing Up, and Mandy Moore, great one. And do you want to talk about the feature with Fangs on Mandy Moore?
Yeah, that one was awesome. So we went down to Nashville in March, and we just took a week, rented out an Airbnb, and just made it into like a little makeshift studio. And every day we were either having different people come in and work with us, or like Zooming with people and doing like writes of, and so we really came up, like every single day was a different song. So I think we came out of there with like 6 finished written songs. And one of those days, like obviously, so we went on tour with Fangs right before, right before the pandemic hit, and it was like the day everything shut down was the last day of our tour. And so, we've developed a really great friendship with him, and he's kind of become like, a really big mentor to us. Jake has really been through a lot and has been able to kind of instill some wisdom in us. And, we always refer to him as our dad. Because he treats us like his children. So, when he came in and wrote the song, it was just so much fun because, Mandy Moore it's filled with like references, but they're not like in your face references. They're kind of like you have to think about them a little bit. And he is the king of like just references, like very specific, like early 2000s references. And this song, we kind of said like, want it to feel like a 2004 romantic comedy. And there are like movies from 2004 like referenced in there, and like Mandy Moore movies are referenced in there. Little 2004 things are in there. And what was cool with him is he just can rattle those off like it's his job. And so kind of like once we finished, the lyrics and the production and stuff, he was like, yo, I kind of want to sing on this. And we were like, yeah, let's do it. So he was great. He got to be like, come up to Columbus and be in all of like, the art and like some of the video stuff that we did as well for it, like the Spotify canvas. And it was awesome. It felt like we just like added a new member to our band for a song. And yeah, it was the most fun thing.
That's awesome. And, other than typical 90s influences, what other influences do you guys take in your music that may be from the 90s or also current music now?
You want to kick this off?
Yeah. I think now there's a little more 90s influence. I don't think that's how it started off. I think we kind of just, we like who we like, and we just try to pull any musical influence we have into our stuff and just try to stay in this, in these rails, but not go too far out. But like in terms of like production, like, I'm just trying to pull from like EDM artists, and I pull from like Jeremy Zucker, who's like so good at that like small, intricate, like detailed pop production.
Yeah.
And just like figuring out how to take these weird elements and like these crazy like experimental ideas and then fit them into like what we're doing to like help give us that unique sound.
And I think like what's cool about that is I always come at it from like how does this feel from like an instrumentation, like a more traditional perspective. And then like, that the demo will like usually start on my computer with like, I do some production things, but they're all very like utilitarian, and they're all like, I'm doing this thing with a guitar or like reversing a guitar, stuff like that. And then I'll hand it off to Matt, and there will be like little sound effects and stops and like, different things in there that's like, I come at it from a very, very much like, I want this to sound genuine, like it came out of 2004, and then you hand it off to Matt, and it's like, it sounds like it came out of 2004, and then somebody came through from 2021 and made some like modern refreshment to it, and I think that's what's so cool is like, it's weird that you can marry these worlds together, like, and a lot of artists are doing stuff that sounds like super 80s but has like super modern elements too, and I think that stuff is really great too. It's like, as long as it sounds genuine and cohesive, it's like you can do so many new things with kind of vintage sounds, and it's like we're kind of all over the place, but lately we've been having fun with like trying to make it sound a little bit like early 2000s, like when we were kids. So
Absolutely. So besides Fangs, and you mentioned earlier Valley, are there any other collaborations on what we're going to be hearing in the coming, I would say, year or so? Was that a
yeah,
good
I
time
mean,
frame
so
to say?
features wise, not much we can say there. But as far as like collaborations, we've gotten to write with a lot of people, which has been really fantastic. We wrote with a friend, Fran, whose artist name is Effie. That song will come out. I think we did 3 songs with her or something, and those will all come out at some point. Our good friend Austin Niverell has always been like putting his hands on our stuff. Ever since like the early days of this band. Let's see, Jansen from The Wildlife came through and wrote a song with us. A new friend of ours named Kyle Reynolds just wrote a song with him the other day, and I'm sure I'm forgetting people because we've just written with so many, but it's just so much fun to like get in a room and think of new ideas with new people, because they always bring something to the table that you can't. And I think that's like, we are not going to be those people who are like protective over we're protective over our music, but we're not protective over like how we write the music. We want those extra opinions, because I mean, what is music if not for collaboration? You know what I mean?
That was beautifully said. That's exciting. I'm a big fan of The Wildlife, and that will be very exciting to hear what you guys came up with on that track. So kind of switching gears a little bit, the name 90's Kids, where did that come from, other than the obvious reason that I'm assuming you all are 90's kids? Or is that kind of where it is?
We always joke because our group text is called 90's Toddlers, because we were all born in like anywhere from 94 to 96.
Mm-hmm.
But the term, 90's kids really rang out to us because we're technically 90's kids, but it's more of a mindset than it is a, strictly age, right?
Yeah.
A 90's kids is so unique because, that generation grew up at like the advent of all this technology. So we remember those simpler times when like, we had to run out to Blockbuster, and like we feel nostalgic about things that are unheard of today. And like, all these kids, look at us like we have 3 heads, when we're like, I miss when I had to go to the video store to like watch something, and they're, but I think what's so great about that is that this generation is so unique, because we are very future focused, and we want to change the world for the better. But we kind of, I guess, have embraced modernity, but also we have this affinity for nostalgia and the things that were simpler and the things that were easier, and just life moved a little bit slower when we were younger, and we have that affinity for that. So we like to call ourselves just like the generation of nostalgia. And it's not that we're stuck in the past, but I think it's, we're in that unique spot where we're able to pull in those influences and those memories that made us feel something in a way that's so different from the age of everything being on a screen and like, information overload. So that's really what our story is, right? And I think that we're all very like nostalgic people. You know, like we're out here like this dude's got Heelys and he's like rolling around in Heelys, like, and we're playing like I don't know, like we bought like sock 'em boppers
We
and
have
we're
Beyblades too.
and like
My brother
ripsticks.
just bought Beyblades, and we're trying to do like a draft of Beyblades.
Dude, Beyblades are. We bought them like a year ago, just on Amazon. Like, I think we were just like drunk one night and we're like, "Yo, let's buy Beyblades." Like, they showed up like 2 days later, and we're just like, ripping them.
But like those things, it's like we have no shame for it, and it's like we love that stuff, right? We're not like stuck on like our iPhones all day every day, and like I think that being able to appreciate the little things, you know, is what being a '90s kid is all about.
Absolutely. And, you know, I also am 90s toddler. I was born in 97, so it's like you really get that whole like my niece is turning 13 this year, and all she has known is being on a phone, and it scares me because I'm like I remember sharing a cell phone, and that already was like kind of like whoa, like I have a cell phone and I'm like 12, and yet alone she's just like out here like on TikTok doing TikTok dances, and I'm like, when I was 13 I was making friendship bracelets. So it's, and I think that like is awesome, and the fact that you guys kind of like encapsulate all of that is, you know, incredible. So very important, very serious question. If you had to get stuck in one 90s show, now this can range from like, our shows that we watched growing up, which one would it be?
Oh man, I have no idea.
I'm not sure how '90s it is. I know it's like a very '90s thing. I can't remember if it was like late '80s into '90s, but my gut is just saying Saved by the Bell all the way.
Yeah.
I just want to be like best friends with Zach Morris. Like, and walk around those hallways. Like, it's just so iconic to me. But again, like, there's so many shows like that.
Right, exactly. I'm thinking like The Nanny because of New York, and then also like Full House, because I feel like growing up in the Full House house is what anybody like I was around wanted to do, because like you got the Uncle Jesse, you got the Joey.
Yeah.
You really get like a full round experience.
What about you?
I I have no idea, honestly. I'm gonna have to think about this. Maybe we can come back to it, but Full
Yeah.
House is definitely a good one. I watched so much Full House growing up, but let me think on it. I'll bring it up if I think of
No
one.
pressure. It's a very serious question. I
Yeah.
understand. So looking at the future, other than collaborations, what can you tease that we will be getting? Is it an EP, an album? What do we?
So all I can say is like there's just gonna be a lot of music the rest of the year. Like we spent, a good portion of the beginning of the year just like formulating what this new world is for us, and growing up started it. Mandy Moore kind of continued to kick it off, but I think what you'll hear is a lot more of a range of like emotion and depth to our songs. These first two have really been those like kind of nostalgic bangers, like very like Click 5y and kind of stuff like that. And we're all about that, and there's going to continue to be that. But there are songs that we've written that will continue to come out this year that are maybe like just some of the most deep and introspective and like soft things that we've put out, like Delicate, and I all the way to like sad boy emo stuff. Like I think that we're just letting the emotion drive the song first. And I think we've said a lot when it comes to just like letting you scream and have fun with stuff, right, in a crowd. But it's like I think we are letting ourselves feel a little bit more when it comes to our music, and that's something that we could not be more excited to put out into the world, and just see how our fan base reflects on it.
Absolutely. I'm excited. Our touring dates in the future.
Keep an eye out.
I will keep multiple eyes out.
Multiple.
I'm very excited to hear all of that, and I'm, like I said, as soon as I heard Adeline, I have been a fan since, and kind of loved everything you guys have done. Growing up, especially, I really dig it. So I can't wait. Do you guys want to play a fun game of quick picks where I make you quick pick the first song that comes to your head in regards to a random scenario?
Let's do
Let's
it.
do it.
Awesome. So the first one, you're on a roller coaster and you're at the very tip top and you're about to go over and then it just stops. I'm thinking Break Free by Ariana Grande. For obvious reasons, I would like to break free. I do not want the anxiety of riding a roller coaster.
Stuck by the Aces.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I love the Aces.
They're so great.
I'm gonna be so bad at this game because I'm so bad at just like thinking of things. Like
Matt and I always joke that I do things way too fast when we write music, and he is so like methodical, and like Matt will, and sorry, we're just ruining your game, but Matt will spend like 30 minutes going through like different snare sounds until he finds one that he likes, and I'm just like, okay, I like that one, go. And I'll just be sitting back here like, okay, pick a snare, let's go. But yeah, so that's just kind of how we are. I don't know. It works.
That's okay. That's okay.
You got
If
one?
you don't want to answer, that's okay.
yeah, I don't have one. I just don't have
Okay.
one.
That works. That works. So the next one, it's the hottest day of the summer. You're eating ice cream. It melts to the point where it falls on the ground. You lose all of your ice cream. I'm thinking Downfall of Us All by A Day to Remember. I just would be so angry as much as I love ice cream that I would have to just...
I Lost You by The Wildlife.
Ooh.
I lost you.
There we go. There we
I don't know why, I
go.
just felt like it had to be something very sad.
Meanwhile, I'm like raging because I've lost ice cream, and that's just like the most upsetting thing I can do.
It is.
Um,
That's a great one.
Matt, are we passing? We're passing?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
Okay.
I might get one of these.
So I have one
Okay.
more, so pressure's on. Or not.
Okay.
It's okay.
Here we go.
So this is one I ask everybody because I think it gets the funniest answers. You just went on a really bad date with somebody and everything went wrong, but you have to drive the person home, and you have the aux. I go Brutal by Olivia Rodrigo for obvious reasons.
So what you're talking? What we play on the aux after
Yeah.
a really bad date?
After really, you got to drop the person off, and it's just you're angry it went bad, or you're happy it went bad, whatever that looks like.
What's that song that I don't even know the song, but I know that Michael Scott sings it when Carol breaks up with him in the office. It's like, goodbye, my lover. Goodbye, my friend. I don't even know what that song is. But it's that. I would play the clip of Michael Scott singing that way, like that poorly. And not even the song. But that's
We'll
what I
take
would
it.
do. Just own it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just I feel like the answers for that one get so funny.
Indeed. Anything.
Anything to break the silence, or just like make it silent, even
You got
even
this,
more
Matt.
awkward.
Bad date.
I don't know what I would play. I don't know.
My other offering is you just play something really like some harsh metal music just to like get them away.
Yeah,
Like,
it's just like
bye.
no, we can't do this. Like
Bye.
no.
I'd probably just play whatever song I wanted to listen to. Like I'm so picky of what I listen to in the car. I'd probably just be like, all right, I want to listen to this song.
Just
Turn it
like
all
deal
the
with
way up.
This has nothing to do with you. I like my music.
Well, thanks for playing. I have one final question for you guys. Musicians and artists have the platforms, whether bigger or smaller, to do things and say things that could impact their fans, and leave a mark on the world. What is the mark you guys would like to make as a band?
I think something that for me, I think the most important thing is the relationships that our music is able to build is far more important than the music itself. Being able to touch people through song is incredible, but there's something like just incredibly like magical about like looking out into the crowd and like seeing people becoming friends, like that like, you know, maybe they met at a 90s kids show and then they're at the next show together. Or, you know, we have a Discord group chat with like what we call our day ones. I think there's like 50 people in there that, you know, like we'll just see them talking to each other, and like, you know, they're talking to each other on Twitter and stuff, and they're like becoming friends because they just joined this chat like about our band. And like that kind of stuff, the fact that we've been able to even on just a small scale, like we're not the biggest band in the world, but bringing people together, and like people that just never would have met or never would have become friends. I think that is the most powerful thing that music can do. And so whatever we can do as a band to build that community and, you know, make people feel at home in the world of like our music, and just not even that, just who we are as people, what we believe in, you know, that kind of inclusivity and like that friendship building is, that's the most fulfilling thing that, you know, I could possibly say as an artist that I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the perfect answer. We like we're all music fans. We all grew up like obsessed with music, whether, you know, it's an artist or like going to shows. And I think it's because there's just such a strong emotional connection with music and your favorite songs. So like having the opportunity to like make songs that, you know, might be somebody's favorite song, whether it's a lot of people or just one person, it's their favorite song. Like that's like so special as an artist that you can like reach one person to like that level. So just having the opportunity to like make that impact on somebody, but also maybe they make another best friend from that. Like it's so cool to us and kind of mind blowing that like that's already kind of happening.
I think somebody just got the first 90s kids tattoo that we know of like earlier this year, and it's like, and it's just, I mean, that person, I guess, trusts us with like something that they're going to put on themselves permanently, like knowing that it has impacted even one person enough to do that. And we're not saying that's a benchmark for anything, but it's like those kind of things to us are like, okay, you know what, even if we never become like the biggest thing in the world, even if, you know, we kind of hang it up in a few years and crash and burn or whatever, it's like that one person like felt something enough that, you know, they wanted to do that. Or if one person said, you know, I was in a really bad place and your music helped to pull me out of it. I mean, like that is that's just so powerful.
Absolutely. And, you know, as a music fan, like that is, you know, everything you want to hear from somebody. And, you know, being able to listen to music in that way is, and really connect with music in that way is really all I want from a band. And that was a great answer. Thank you guys. And hopefully this was an all access pass to your new favorite artist, 90s kids. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you, Allie. We love what you're doing, and, you know, keep it up. We'll be listening. And maybe we'll come back on someday.
Yeah.